Hi, everybody. Joe Cioffi here. Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes. Tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, we've got our major storm that's developing offshore, and that means winter storm warnings for many areas in the interior Northeast. And we've also got a storm on the West Coast with winter storm warnings and flood watches. And add to that, a freeze warning across the deep south. So we'll talk all about that tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. Weather in 5 is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, in Southwest Suffolk County on Long Island. They're getting ready for spring, and they've got mulch, they've got topsoil and sand, and they have salt in case you need it. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number, and the website is omnitruevalue.com. Okay, we've got a slew of winter storm warnings up for just about everybody in the Northeast, from Northeast Pennsylvania all the way up into Maine. It does not include the immediate coast, which for now has no watches, warnings, or advisories. But just inland, we have some winter weather advisories. We have winter storm watches up for the counties surrounding Hartford, Connecticut, as we wait to see the impact of the wind coming down the Connecticut River Valley can sometimes cut down on snow accumulations. Also, in parts of southeastern Massachusetts, we still have a winter storm watch up rather than a warning as we see what happens with this storm and how it tracks. High wind warnings for coastal eastern and southeastern New England with wind gusts of 50 to 60 miles an hour expected. And while the snow map loads, we're going to take a look at what is going on elsewhere with regards to this storm and how it's going to lead up to tonight, tomorrow, and into tomorrow night. So we actually, if you look at the satellite loop, you have the system that is moved, starting to develop off the Carolina coast. It is moving out to the east, at least for now, and then you have this strong upper air low pressure system that is going to energize this low offshore even more, and it'll probably track out to the east and then turn northeast and north toward Cape Cod, come to a grinding halt, and then do a little bit of a loop and drop southward and then go out eastward. And this makes this a relatively long duration event that we're going to be seeing. And here's the radar, which right now actually the precip that you see over New Jersey, down into Delaware and off the shores of Long Island and southeastern New England, most of that is on the light side. It really isn't going to amount to too much. Some places aren't doing much of anything at all this afternoon. Sort of waiting here for the energy that's back out in Indiana, Ohio, and southern Michigan. You can see there's a bit of a curl there on the radar view, so that's an indication that we're dealing with a rather well-defined upper air system that is going to be moving into the eastern part of the United States. Just wanted to give a quick look here to WPC's forecast for rain over the next 7 days. So what you're seeing here is pretty much in the Northeast from this one storm. And we're looking at anywhere from 1.5 inches to as much as 2.5 inches of liquid precip. And of course, in the areas inland, it is going to be mostly in the form of snow, which is why you see some big amounts on the snow accumulation map, which we'll get into in a moment. And then I just want to point out that another major storm is coming into the west with heavy rains of an additional 5 to 10 inches or more in the Sierra Nevadas. A lot of that is going to be rain rather than snow. Some of it will be snow, but a lot of it's going to be rain, especially at lower elevations and also up and down the west coast. And considerable flooding is going to occur when you put that on top of the many feet of snow that has fallen there in the last couple of weeks. So this is WPC's latest forecast of the probability for at least 2 inches. I'm just going to check to see if there's a new one, and there isn't. So this was done shortly before 11 o'clock this morning. And the probability of, again, I always like to use that 50% line. So that 50% line runs through southeastern Massachusetts, southern Rhode Island and Connecticut to just north and west of New York City, and then across into New Jersey, into northern Hunterdon County, and on out from there into eastern Pennsylvania. So the probabilities for inland areas getting at least 2 is very high. I'm going to jump to the probability of at least 8. And you see that in the Catskills, the middle and upper Hudson Valley, the Berkshires, the mountains in Vermont and into New Hampshire, that entire area has an 80 to 100% probability of at least 8. And Northwest New Jersey is in the 50 to 60% probability for at least 8 inches. Now let's take a look at what the Weather Service is doing for snowfall amounts. Now I just want to emphasize here, it is going to be elevation driven in the Northeast. So if you're in, for example, and this is probably going to be more important as you head further south. So in northern New Jersey, for example, you could have as little as an inch or maybe as much as 8, 9, or 10 inches in some of the higher hills and mountains in northwest New Jersey. And the same goes for northeastern Pennsylvania. You see big amounts in the Catskills of 2 to 3 feet there, a 29 print and a 36 print. Meanwhile, along the coast, it's a coating to an inch or two. And I want to even be careful here because there is variability in terms of what some of the models are showing. Some are showing very little. Some are showing as much as half a foot or more. It's a very, very tough call with what may or may not happen at the coast. So here's a look at the NAM model. You see that coastal low out tonight, moving to the northeast, kind of inching its way along. Colder air starts to work in as that upper air disturbance begins to get involved, and you'll see that area of blue, the snow, and the darker blues, which would be moderate to heavy snow, expand. Meanwhile, in southern Connecticut and southeastern Massachusetts and over Long Island, it's mostly rain for the overnight until tomorrow morning at around 8 or 9 o'clock. We start to see a changeover to snow over Long Island and for much of the rest of eastern New England as the low comes to a grinding halt somewhere between Boston and Providence and then drops southward back out into the open waters of the Atlantic tomorrow night, and then on to the east, and it's out of here on Wednesday. So we're just going to have to, now we're at the point where we watch the radar, we watch the satellite, we look at the surface observations, and then we can zero in more on this, on some of those snow totals. We'll probably have to lower some numbers, and we'll probably have to raise some numbers along the way. Weather in 5 brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 is the phone number. The website is omnitruevalue.com. And don't forget, tonight, 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time, the Joe and Joe Weather Show.